the interesting thing, and I want to get into that sort of like relationship between capitalism and tech that you write about, because there is, I mean, you do have these people who sort of like got stuck in a pipeline. I mean, there's this concept of acquired narcissism for really famous people. And I have to imagine that there's some type of like analog to what happens when you so rapidly accumulate so much money that we see in the context of like this tech world, that we haven't necessarily, I mean, I guess there were moments like I struck oil on my, Beverly Hillbillies, and all of a sudden I'm a millionaire when I wasn't before. But there's a lot more of that seems to happen in this era. And it must completely untether you from like society in a way that we haven't really quite seen. Just the pace in which you're untethered just has to have some type of, just has to make you almost sociopathic on some level.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember way back when in the 80s or 90s, I wrote a piece about how a bunch of like movie stars and rock stars were going to Kabbalah, and I felt
I think I might have read that piece. I remember that. I remember all those people doing it. Like, Bernhardt and Madonna and
things. Yeah. But why did they do it? It was partly because they had to somehow, they didn't feel like their sudden fame and wealth was justified because they knew they were just like anybody else. Why was I picked? And you need a rationale. What we're seeing in these billionaires, though, I mean, I got some studies in the book that it turns out that billionaires have less of an empathic response than regular people. Like you put a billionaire in an MRI machine and show them a picture of a starving baby, and the parts of their brain that are supposed to light up, or that light up for you and me, don't for them. They don't experience that same empathy. And I don't believe it's because they were born that way. I believe it's because the decisions that they had to make to become that wealthy involved externalizing so much harm to other people, that they ended up, putting boundaries around their own psyche that only get cracked for a moment, when they take ayahuasca at Burning Man and they have, an hour or two of thinking, now I'm going to save the world with my new software stack, right? I'm going to build a solar panel eco village system. As long as I can, clear out these indigenous people from this forest, I can go build my perfect sustainable, community.
Is that what you call the insulation equation? Is that basically the explanation for that?
Yeah, or part of it. Yeah. I mean, the insulation equation is this idea that, we believe, or many of us believe, that we've been using technology to make people's lives easier. But really what we're using it for is to shield ourselves from the labor that's going into it. So, it goes back to, say, Thomas Jefferson and the dumbwaiter, that we were taught in middle school. Oh, the dumbwaiter was so his enslaved servants, wouldn't have to carry the food all the way up the stairs. But if you look at the situation, they were carrying the food like through a mile-long tunnel and up 3 flights of stairs to the very last staircase. You put it in this little, elevator so it could look to Thomas Jefferson and his guests as if the food just arrived auto-magically, like from a Star Trek replicator. But all you were really doing was saving Jefferson and his guests the shame or the indignity of having to see the huffing and puffing servants who are bringing the food. And it's the same with, many modern technologies. Like Amazon has this service called like Made for You, where you take like an iPhone picture of yourself and it'll have these robots automatically make this perfect t-shirt according to your body and your specifications. And it shows up on your Amazon doorbell on a video, no humans involved, right? But where did the cotton come from? Where did the rare earth metals come from for the robots that made the t-shirt? Yes, there's enslaved children in the Congo, going into caves at gunpoint to get the cobalt, to make these things. So we're not really eliminating labor. We're just pushing labor further and further away from our ability to see it.
I mean, we've done that. Well, I mean, slavery exists every time we put on a piece of clothing. That's what we're dealing with on some level. And I think you also write about like some chemical that's used to keep on is it on iPhones or sometimes
or like smartphones in general. Yeah. Right. We don't want to see the fingerprints. So the last stage in the production process is they use this extremely toxic chemical to take the fingerprints off the phone. So it looks like there was no human labor involved in manufacturing it. But this toxic chemical actually shortens the lives of the laborers using it. So in order to make it look like there's no people involved, we actually shorten the lives of the humans. And that's the comeuppance. That's the stuff that any tech billionaire is aware of on some level and trying to outrun. And that's really the myth here, that can they earn enough money to escape from the harm they're causing by earning money in that way, right? Can they build enough technology to escape from the externalities of having built technology in that fashion? Which is why, I just saw that letter they wrote, a bunch of these, the AI letter. Have you talked about this one at all? There's this, a thing that a bunch of Elon Musk and a bunch of these guys have signed on to, and some very well-concerned, tech ethicists.
Oh,
even,
yes. I know what you're
about,
talking about.
Let's freeze AI development for 6 months. Let's do a moratorium and just leave it at the level of ChatGPT-4 so we can really get a handle on this.
Right.
And
so we can get ahead and monetize it, and then the free model is made obsolete.
Right. I mean, really, well, it's partly for that, and partly because for these guys, AI is not about helping humanity solve real problems today. They couldn't give a hoot about the fact that these algorithms are already biased against Black people and women and poor people, and it encourages the incarceral state and increased poverty, and just awful. So they don't want to look at the present problem. What they're concerned about is getting off the planet. Right? They're concerned about the next phase of humanity that they want to take part in, the man-machine augmented post-human, reality that these guys talk about. They call it effective altruism. The people on Earth now don't matter. We're just the larval stage in the evolution of the species. It's the ones that get wings, right? The ones that get their AI robot cyborg wings and can leave the planet and go to Mars as pure digital consciousness. Those are the ones that they're thinking about, and those are the ones they're afraid. They want to make sure that just as these guys, these dudes have gone meta on us, they know that AI can go meta on them, right? That's their fear.
So it's really on some level like a projection that that AI is going to do to them what they are either doing or trying to do to the rest of us.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And again, it's because they just don't grasp history. It's funny. I was just thinking the other day, I don't know if it's accurate to say, but I feel like Marxists use historical examples, and these kind of proto-fascists, they use metaphor, right? It's
right. It's all theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be, because it doesn't work a lot of times in real world.
In the ground. It doesn't work on the ground. So it's theory. So it's always meta, right? You look at capitalism. What is capitalism? It's meta. It's the financialization of there's real people with real needs, and we figure out how can we go one level above that and own the banking system, or buy derivatives on banking, or buy derivatives of the derivatives of the derivatives of the banking system, right? The financial world is like 1 or 2 or 5 levels removed from reality. Digital is the same way. Right? Digital is not real. Digital is a symbol system. So that's why those two things have dovetailed so perfectly into this new sort of digitally, steroidally accelerated form of capitalism. That's what we have to look out for. That's why they want to go to a virtual world. What is this Web3, metaverse that Zuckerberg's talking about? It's the blockchain and virtual reality, right? It's not here. It's not on the ground, but there's still real people here, right? And that's what I keep trying to bring us back to, is the real conditions on the ground that they're trying to ignore, or that they feel are so bad that climate change and the death of our species is so inevitable to these guys that they literally do want to get to Mars, or get to the the server in the sky and exist as something else.
And the thing is, it's just them. They want to get them there. It's not like they want to get us there, right?
No, exactly. That's why they're bunkers. They hold 40 people, right? Them, their wives, their kids, and then 30 teenage girls for them to impregnate with their seed forever. The sort of a Jeffrey Epstein style dormitory.
Well, that's actually a very real thing. And this is a bit of an aside, but I am curious about that kind of natalist strain as well within some of these billionaires, including Elon Musk. I mean, since you're an expert on these ghouls, I mean, what do you make of that and how that connects into their larger world philosophy?
Well, it's weird. I mean, for me, I came around it sort of through the other side where I witnessed it was, I I was at a party at my soon-to-be agent's house with a bunch of scientists, and I got in this big argument with Richard Dawkins, who was making fun of me for believing that there was, I hate to even use the word because people laugh at me, but that there's something like a soul, that human beings have a soul, that we have some innate reason for being here, that there's something going on here that maybe materialist science doesn't completely explain. And as someone who studied philosophy, I know, read your Wittgenstein. There's systems of meaning that we use as communities to understand the world, and staunch materialism is one of them, but it doesn't explain a whole lot of stuff. It's an underlying assumption. And he teased me and eventually said, with his friends, the other kind of atheist they're not scientists, they're believers in scientism. They said, "Oh, Rushkoff, you're a moralist." Right. And then, 20 years later, cut to the future, right? I see them on the friggin' Jeffrey Epstein's plane going to the TED conference and realize, oh, there's a reason why Jeffrey Epstein really was drawn to these, harsh atheist geneticists kinds of scientists who say, nothing going on here. There's just these creatures, basically, monkeys with genes that are controlling them, that we respond to memes. We're not even conscious, right? Consciousness is an illusion perpetrated by your DNA. If there's nothing happening here, but you and your genes, you and your code, basically, then the object of the game is to spread your code. So of course, it's really a form of eugenesis, right?
Just in reverse.
You are your code.
Yeah.
Yeah.